We call this a discussion group since we were very, compared to the other working groups, we met twice. And I will just say, the reason we met twice, and I'll actually go back. So we included all of the co-chairs. You have heard throughout this day the issues of land use come up over and over again. And I would say we invited all of the co-chairs as well as working group members to participate with us in these two conversations that were action-packed. And why were we kind of breaking this out separately? I think you've heard throughout the day, and I think every one of you probably lives in a community in Maine, and you see the constant, I think, tension and opportunity between land use and our climate goal intersections. Just a few of the bubbles up here. How do we prioritize development that meets housing and workforce needs while reducing transportation emissions? How do we site clean energy infrastructure to achieve the state mandates and targets cost effectively and responsibly? How do we meet Maine's climate goals that prioritize increasing Maine-grown food consumption, protecting natural and working lands for habitats, heritage industries, and recreation? How do we ensure we meet our very aggressive carbon sequestration requirements? How do we manage natural working lands' ability to support climate resilience, like the benefits of coastal marshes? So I will just say, these are all of the things that we want to do, we know as a state are important to do. But the challenge is they intersect and they sometimes conflict. And I think the point of the task force was to quickly develop recommendations in the context of both the challenges we face, like the housing crisis, growth opportunities, the jobs and economic benefits that our state sees in front of them, as well as our climate goals. We recognize that Maine communities, whether they are rural or urban, need support in implementing effective land use policies that achieve intersecting goals and navigate the conflicts that arise, the challenging conversations, and how do we think thoughtfully about regional differences and different priorities in different parts of our state. I will say, what you're about to see in terms of our recommendations is there are not silver bullets. I think all of this work is really about we need to carefully think about the conflicts and help determine how do we as a state help community policymakers who make a lot of these decisions, regional governments who often support these decisions, as well as state policymakers who do play a role in terms of incentive programs, requirements, regulations. We all have a role in this. And again, there is no simple solution, but we need to be constantly intentional about how we are managing, I would say, conflicting goals. So this is not new. I know there are some housing legislators in the room who've worked really hard on these issues over the last couple of years. The state of Maine has at times had incredibly robust programs, and we are continuing to focus on how do we promote smart growth to reduce emissions, prevent natural and working land conversion, and create affordable housing. That was kind of that's sort of an overarching strategy that encompasses many of the things that the Climate Council wants to do, the things that our state is struggling with in terms of the housing crisis, and how do we do it in a way that makes sense. So I would say we came up with 3 goals in this conversation, and the first goal is really overarching, and the second 2 kind of serve that first goal. So again, I won't read everything on here. I think these are the things you actually heard many of the co-chairs already raise, but we know we need to do better as a state. We know we are often turning down housing developments in certain parts of our state. And what does that lead to? It probably will lead to the need for that housing to sprawl and use valuable farmland, working lands in a different way. We know that conversations around clean energy are important and challenging, and we need to be thoughtful. We need to be able to build clean energy on disturbed lands where it's possible. And we know we probably need to go beyond that. So how do we thoughtfully site the transmission lines, the clean energy resources our state needs? You heard a lot today about natural working lands. We talked about the importance of our forest product sector, the incredible goals and importance of our agricultural sector in meeting our other climate goals. We all as a state, we know we really value our natural lands, recreation. That is why so many people come to Maine and live in Maine. Again, our ability to focus and concentrate growth and responsibly site projects that we know our state needs. That is at the crux of this challenge and the importance of why we can't sort of just say those issues are hard, I'm not going to focus on them. We know our ability to accomplish all of our climate goals really comes down to land use very often. So two other, the kind of how do we do it? We know that technical assistance to communities, proactive communication and engagement is a slog. It's what I know David does day after day. Having hard conversations and planning intentionally, that is how we get there. And again, there's not a silver bullet, but literally every community needs sort of thoughtful support from the state level, at the local level, at the regional level to think about how we do this. We talked a lot in our conversations about messaging. There's lots of misconceptions about different types of development, but there are opportunities to have local conversations about what communities want to see, to understand how this has worked in other parts of the state, sort of the ideal solutions that have worked elsewhere. We know there's lots of technical assistance, whether it's model ordinances, whether it's planning specifically in growth areas like the state has done with housing. There are many opportunities, but we need to be clear that they need to happen, and they need to happen across our state. So the last one is sort of both the carrots and the sticks. What are both the incentives to these kinds of activities, as well as the requirements and regulations that can really help this come together? So we're doing this to both, again, reduce emissions, foster vibrant community centers, reduce sprawl, and provide measurable benefits. So again, a lot of similar themes. So how do we support affordable housing in locations near services? How do we protect natural and working lands as we do community planning? How do we support adaptation and resilience strategies for heritage industries? This could be for our northern forests or for our coastal lands where, again, you heard this morning about real challenges in terms of access to the ocean. Those are land use conversations. We know that data can inform these, and the state is already undertaking data projects, but we know we need to do a much better job. From agricultural lands to the siting of clean energy, the opportunities to use high resolution data can really better help inform communities as they make these decisions. We need to prioritize projects that mitigate environmental and community risk. And there's a lot of debate about prioritization. Is that jumping the line? Is that making the permitting process clear? Is it supporting our permitting agencies at the local level or the Department of Environmental Protection to ensure that they have the resources to make these decisions quickly, thoughtfully, predictably? We know that all of those things need to happen. And last but not least, the financial solutions to undertake these actions, especially our smallest rural communities are really struggling with these decisions at the local level, and the state's ability to partner in terms of this level of decision making is incredibly important. So I will just say that this strategy has a lot of details. I highly encourage you to read our now online all of the ideas we came up with in these three strategies. I will say they are a roadmap for how states and communities can partner on these issues. They implicate nearly every state agency and every community in Maine in terms of how we think about land use. We know it overlaps with, again, the bold goals the governor has set out on housing, the bold goals we have on land preservation, the bold goals we have on clean energy. So I would just encourage you all to read the strategies. I thank our staff who helped put them together so rapidly. And again, this was an area where we got a diverse group of people where there are disagreements. This is an issue rife with disagreements. But I think we were able to settle on these things absolutely make sense, and they are urgently needed to support our goals. So I will end there and pass it back to David, and that's all I got.
All right.